Hello everyone, welcome back. Eric Mall here again, conductor with the Ridgefield Symphony Orchestra for this season. And this is our second video for our concert on December 7th. And this video is all about Beethoven's Emperor Concerto and our soloist with the incredible Michelle Kahn. I absolutely cannot wait to make some beautiful, beautiful, meaningful music with her. So please come join us. And this video is going to be a little bit shorter just because I feel a little bit, self-conscious about my piano playing, knowing that somebody as incredible as Michelle is going to be coming in. But I want to talk a little bit about what makes this particular piece unique, what makes it special, and almost everything that Beethoven wrote, there's something about it that changed the world. So in this particular case, this was his final piano concerto, and what Beethoven kind of did with concertos specifically was really started thinking differently about the relationship between the soloist and the orchestra and how they interact and how to kind of create narrative and meaning out of that relationship. Because before then, even in Mozart, it was kind of, especially in Bach and things like this, like if you think about the Brandenburg concertos and things like that, it's much more kind of, the soloist isn't really a soloist. It's not a soloist who's sitting out in front of the orchestra and the orchestra is accompanying them. They're kind of interacting in different ways. They're kind of inside of the orchestra, and playing more soloistic things for sure, but it's a little bit more incorporated into the general texture of the music. And that's true even in Mozart, where, some of his violin concertos and things like that. And we're starting to kind of break out of that mold for sure. But with Beethoven, just like what he did kind of with Romanticism, is he took this idea of using that tension or release between the orchestra or the accompaniment and the soloist itself, and kind of using that as a way to create some more kind of a meaning, some more kind of a narrative, using it as an actual kind of musical aspect that he could use as in addition to harmony and melody and all the things that we normally think about. So this is a really, really great example of that, and especially the first movement. This is a 3-movement piece. It's all in E-flat major, which is the same key that Beethoven's Third Symphony, which we did at the beginning of the season, is in. It's one of my favorite keys, and it's beautiful. And, the Emperor Concerto, it's named for that. Similar to the Eroica Symphony, it's a really, really big concerto, and it starts off with this really wonderful E-flat major chord, kind of welcome to the world, very heroic, very royal, very emperor, So it has this initial kind of feel for that, and the breadth and size of it all just really lends itself to that title. So that's basically why it's called that. So it starts off in this beautiful E-flat major, and that's the first chords we're going to hear of the concert. It's just this heroic, beautiful, royal sounding E-flat major, and then we get some of this. So simple. And then we get the first theme. Etc., etc. Again, this is very kind of, Beethovenian, very simple kind of, simple melodies that are turned into something really, really, really magnificent. Now, I just want to give one example. So throughout the whole first movement, what I would really love for everybody to try and listen to is exactly how the soloist is interacting with the accompaniment, with the orchestra. Sometimes they're working together, other times they're working against each other, sometimes they're interrupting each other, other times they're kind of helping each other through things, and that kind of, whether or not there's this tension between these two aspects of this music making, or whether there's harmony between these two aspects, that really can tell us a lot about kind of where we are in the music and what Beethoven's trying to say. A really good example of that is about halfway through this first moment, where it's a little bit difficult on piano because the piano is going to sound the same as the orchestral accompaniment, but I'll try and make it a little bit clearer. So it starts, winds and brass, and then the piano comes in, and it goes back. It goes on and on and on. So that's a moment where it's kind of doing a little bit of both, right? The winds and brass kind of introduce da shum ba bum bum ba bum bum ba bum dum ba bum. Then the piano player comes in and kind of interrupts this whole thing, but it's also picking up on exactly what they're doing too. So it's this really, really interesting way that Beethoven is able to create this really meaningful relationship between the soloist and the orchestra that helps kind of propel this story and this narrative and create some more meaning on top of all of the other things that Beethoven is doing and has done in his music before, using the foundations, the regular kind of things that he uses in music: melody, harmony, rhythm, all of that stuff. And if you want to get a better feel for how he uses those kinds of things, you can go back to the video on Beethoven's Third Symphony that I did for the last concert, where I talk a lot about that kind of thing. And that carries over to a lot of what Beethoven does in most of his pieces. So that's something really great to listen to in the first movement in particular. I mean, there's some really, really wonderful melodies. So listen for those. Now, the second movement is such a fabulous example of just this kind of simplicity that Beethoven can turn into such an incredible amount of beauty, and the kind of meaning you can find in that. And a lot of Beethoven's slow major movements, you have the same kind of very simple harmony, chorale-like kind of motion that just kind of takes us to a different world. So beautiful, and it's just so Beethoven in so many ways, and the strings open up with this beautiful thing. And then I love this moment because the piano comes in, and it doesn't come in with that melody. It doesn't come in with something that's super solid and kind of this introduction of, hello, I am the soloist, this is my spot, this is my home, this is solid. But he comes in with this instead. Like that, and it's this kind of just downward scalar, again, very simple, but it has this impression of kind of searching. It's looking around for its home. It's a little bit, wandering, and maybe even a little bit daydreaming, just kind of trying to figure out and find its way, which is, again, really unique. We would expect this kind of entrance in a concerto where it's rum, there I am, even if it's slow music. Here's the melody, here's the main theme, I am the star, but here it enters as this really, sorry. It's just really interesting that he does that. But eventually, this actually happens for quite some time, and it keeps searching and searching and looking for something. And then finally, he comes in with this spectacular, it's that melody from the beginning, a little bit more kind of, fleshed out. Just the very, very melody of it, just to kind of express just how Beethoven is able to take such an incredibly simple thing and turn it into something so beautiful. So here's this cantabile melody, and then this is, to me, is when the searching kind of stops for a moment, where oh, here I am, I'm in the present moment, I've found my home, and this is what that sounds like. It's so spectacular. I don't know how that, to me, a lot of Beethoven's genius kind of lies in that, and his brilliance is being able to take something so simple and make it so rich and so beautiful and so kind of introspective and personal, and contains so much of what it is to feel, to have emotion, and to be human, and just it's really just that collection of notes, and he turns it into something so miraculous. So that's what I would listen for in this movement. And it's slow enough that it's really he lets you live in spaces for long enough that you can really kind of understand the relationship between, you know, this measure and the next measure. So if we can be really present in the moment and really feel these spaces that Beethoven kind of gives us, and experience all of these things in real time, you know, I think everybody will have a really, really meaningful experience with this. Now, like I mentioned in the last video I did about the Sibelius, in the Sibelius, the third movement and the fourth movement kind of go into each other in this really kind of, you know, growing, quiet, and then it gets bigger, and then it goes into the last movement. And Beethoven here, this is something that Beethoven really kind of invented with his, you know, Fifth Symphony and some other pieces. But this one, the second movement goes into the third movement in a very similar kind of way as the Sibelius, which I think is really, really interesting. But the third movement is really, it's a rondo, allegro ma non troppo. And so you hear this kind of same thing over and over and over again. I'm not sure how many times, but I mean, probably 20-ish times, with some really interesting stuff in between. And a rondo is kind of like an A, B, A, C, A, D, A, C, A, B, A kind of form. And, you know, of course, Beethoven makes that a little bit more complicated and makes it, you know, his own in a really interesting way. And a lot of these forms are related, but that's, you know, too theoretical and too crazy. But it's such a spectacular piece of music that is rife with so much meaning and so many different kinds of meanings. You know, I really feel like in this particular piece, the first movement is kind of a world in and of itself, as is the second and as is the third. But they're also kind of just together at the same time. So it's a really, really beautiful piece. I can't wait to work with Michelle Kahn on this. Make sure that you can make it. It's going to be something that you really, 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 really will not regret missing, believe me. So thank you so much. Again, this is for the Ridgefield Symphony Orchestra's concert on December 7th at 7:30 p.m. at the Richardson Auditorium at Ridgefield High School. And I do hope to see you all there. Thanks.